Something like 90% of women who lose weight through dieting alone regain it within the 5 years. And the reason isn't because of willpower or discipline, it's that they change their body without ever changing their identity.
In last week's episode, we talked about what women actually want when we say, I want to lose weight. It's not actually the number, right? It's the confidence, the strength, the feeling of being in your body instead of fighting it. If you haven't listened, be sure to check out last week's episode for your exact strategy. The reason it often doesn't stick for most people isn't because of the plan, it's everything underneath the plan. Welcome back to the Overt Thinking Podcast, the show for women navigating fitness and health in a world that makes everything way more complicated than it needs to be. We're your hosts. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Brie.
And if you're here, chances are you're tired of overthinking every fitness trend that demands us to shrink and has us feeling like we're failing at a system that never wanted to see us win.
Today's guest has been where so many of you are right now, and she's living proof of what's possible on the other side. And I wanted to bring her on because I think sometimes you hear it from someone who isn't the coach, makes it feel that much more real. So we're bringing on my client, Caitlin Dowd. She's been where you are today, frustrated and stuck in a body that didn't reflect her hard work or the identity that she saw herself having. And this is where you probably are, but could be in just 3 months. Caitlin is a fierce, career driven woman who has used her work in the fashion industry in New York City, fueled on sometimes cigarettes and coffee, trying to chase the skinny aesthetic that she thought would gain the respect and excellence in that industry. Caitlin and her husband Mike then moved to Seattle, where the culture and goals started to change. She started lifting more and felt the empowerment of feeling strong for the first time. This created an entire paradigm shift in her mind, which I'll let her share more about. But it's really about taking things to the next level. She was really looking for support to take herself to the next level without the stop and start and what the heck should I do, and just getting some true guidance. And without further ado, Caitlin, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm very
Yay.
excited. I'm very excited to talk. This is something I feel very strongly about. And I try to tell all my friends, the people, the women in my life. So yeah, happy to get into it.
Yes. So let's take it all the way back to the beginning, to the NYC fashion industry version of you. I
Yeah.
want to know about your relationship to your body, to food at that time, and just really kind of what your day to day looked like.
Yeah. That's so I had to kind of step a little bit before that because it's interesting. My mom owned a clothing store, so I had been working in fashion since I was like 13 years old. And so, and my mom, we grew up in a part of the country, the East Coast, which is like a very fat phobic, very skinny place. I was always like the odd person out. We're more of like a straight sized family. And my mom had been sent to like fat camp as as a kid. And so that
My God.
really, yeah, that really impacted, I think, how she raised us, which was in kind of tension between promoting healthy lifestyles, but not knowing how to actually teach it to us. And so at the same time, we were allowed to indulge a lot. And so, like, I'd get home from school, I'd eat three Pop Tarts with butter on it and then have dinner. And it was like the craziest thing. So I had no model at all for health. So I'd gotten quite heavy by the time I was a senior. In high school, I get to New York for my first year of college. I have no guidance whatsoever. And I have also all of the, existing foundation to enter in what is a full-fledged eating disorder, which would be very classic expression of anorexia, a lot of food restriction, and a lot of obsessive working out. Like I was walking up and down Manhattan all day just to count steps, and then going to the NYU gym to work out. And so that's what gets me to then a like more established career in fashion where now I'm surrounded by people who look like me and I'm realizing that the relationship to me has completely changed. So the way
Yeah.
my clients respond to me has completely changed. The authority I have, the fact that I can fit a sample size, that becomes like the thing, the de facto thing. And New York fashion is predicated on smallness and your entire social sphere is sort of focused on that too. So the only conversations you're having are, what size are you? What have you eaten today? What have you not eaten today? And then you're just like chain smoking cigarettes and you're just on adrenaline. So uh,
Wow.
it reinforces you in every direction. And there's no outside of that. There's no other way to be. Um, and so at the time, I still thought I was a little fat girl, right? But I was not anymore. And I never, and so I don't know. I look at there are very few photos that exist from this period of time in my life, but the ones that I find, I look at that and I'm like, I was so mean to that woman or that girl. I mean, I was so young then. I was so mean to her. I was so in denial of who she was. And I was doing everything I could to basically destroy her.
Yes, to shrink her, make her small,
Yeah.
take your food away, take all the things, all the comforts away.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, like, your mom had this journey, right, where you're saying, like, your community was very fat phobic, so she, like, kind of almost swung the other way, where she's trying to create this good environment for you, but then you find yourself in this same environment that produced the bad habits for your mom, which now you have for yourself, and you're like, "How did I end up here?"
I
Yeah,
think
totally.
that's the big paradigm between, like, what's healthy and then what's, like, on the other end of the spectrum, right? You're getting your fitness journey dialed in, you start getting healthier because 'cause you're moving more, and then we take it to that extreme, and then it's, like, unhealthy again.
As kids, we were normal sized kids, but she fret about that in a way that was very difficult for her, I think, because she felt such shame about her own body. And so she didn't want to pass that on to us, but then inadvertently did anyway. So
Right.
there's no outside of that. Like if you grow up in a house where she's telling herself she's fat every time she's getting dressed, even if she's not telling you you're fat, you hear that message. And so even if you're like a completely normal sized person, you know, the fact that you don't look like a model, the
Mhm.
the whatever the ideal is for her, when she grew up, that was like Twiggy. For us, it's like Kate Moss, like whatever. You don't look like that, then you don't have value. And my family engaged in that. My grandparents were nicer to the prettier, skinnier grandkids. So
I think that's the, like, unfortunate societal pressure that we all feel, and I think we're getting better as a society. We're slowly moving away, like, more women are talking about lifting heavy and wanting to see muscles instead of shrink the muscles and be toned, right? Like, more women are saying, like, "I wanna be jacked. I wanna be strong. That feels cool because look at what I can do."
yeah,
But we still have that underlying thread that's like, you know, it is a status symbol to be even fit, right? Like, even if you're like lean and muscular, that is still a status symbol where we kind of like hold people to different standards, right? And that's, I think, what the body neutrality movement tried to do is like, let's normalize all bodies because it's a spectrum, just like anything else. You can be healthy at every stage. It's a matter of the lifestyle that you do in order to maintain what is healthy within that spectrum. I actually want to touch on first a little bit about your initial journey because I think you
mhm,
started with like kind of where a lot of women are is like group fitness, you're
yes,
overtraining, you're overwalking.
yes,
So you're in New York. How did you get into working out? What was your experience like? I know you were walking a lot. Tell us a
yeah.
little bit about your journey there.
So I had health issues come up right around the time I was getting married, and so I'd gained a bunch of weight that I couldn't control, and I was really freaking out about it. So actually, at the time, I hired a personal trainer, and she had actually laid the groundwork. Like, if you lift heavy, this is how you get the body you want. So I started doing that, but then freaked out because I went to get fitted for the bra that was going to go under my wedding dress. My wedding dress that was purchased pre weight gain, and so I didn't fit it anymore. And it was a size I'd never been before in a bra. She was like, "You're so broad through the chest and the shoulders," like hitting things that trigger me.
Mm.
And so I flipped out, ordered a meal plan that was going to feed me 1150 calories a day, and literally was starving until my wedding. And I got praised on my wedding day because she looked hungry. And that was my social circle. So all of my fashion friends telling me, "Oh, girl, you look starving." Like that was exciting for them and for me. And so coming out of that, realizing like I didn't learn anything in that process. I didn't learn how to plan my own meals. I didn't learn how to eat even a healthy amount of calories. And I also didn't have a movement practice that supported actually feeling strong and capable. I started turning to group fitness as a way to have someone else teach me how to do things. And of course, I can't do anything in a casual way. And so I had ClassPass, so I was doing weird different workouts all over New York City, but then I also had a gym membership where I had classes I was doing there. So I was sometimes doing 2 classes or 3 classes a day. And I always gravitated towards the intense ones. So like really intense boot camps or, there's a spectrum of bar. There's a bunch of different modalities. Some of them are much more sort of physical therapy almost aligned. And then the ones I was going to are things like Physique 57, which is like 57 minutes of pure intensity. Your body hurts the whole time. You're shaking the whole time. High rep scheme, low weights, but to the point where your like whole body burns and vibrates. And if I didn't feel that, then I was like, oh, I'm not doing enough.
That's the
Yeah,
So
part. That's the part. Like, the
yes.
pain of feeling something, "Oh, it must be working." Like, if I'm starving, if I'm on the verge of, like, a physical panic attack, then, like,
yes,
it must be getting me to my dream body, right?
yes. And so I had this idea that if I just kept limiting my calories enough and I kept working hard enough that like magically this toned, fit body would appear. Like she would just ta-da. But there was no basis for that to exist. Like I wasn't an athletic kid. There isn't like historic muscle under there waiting to be revealed. And then when you're in group fitness, no one's actually teaching you how to do it. So
They're
maybe
just
you have
making sure you
mind.
don't die and fall off the
Yeah.
treadmill.
Yeah.
So maybe you have enough mind muscle connection to be like, okay, I'm supposed to feel this in my bicep. And I guess I know what my bicep is. But you don't have anyone cueing the movement correctly. So it's not supported. Like I think one of the big ones we talk about a lot is like in bar, they emphasize the pelvic tuck, right? Or in Pilates too. But no one's actually teaching you what that means. Like from a like pelvic floor, lower core engagement, they're just having you cup your ass in.
They're
So
not
you're
even
kind
talking about
of
the core.
yeah, you're like gripping through your butt. And so how do you both like pressure, like how do you both strengthen and put pressure on that muscle to have it grow if you've also got it so in such a shortened position, right? Where you're gripping for dear life to stay upright. So anyway, she does a lot. And so yeah, I was just chasing adrenaline.
And probably some of that thinking is like, oh, this worked in the beginning because you
Yes.
saw a lot of body change with like more activity, less eating. Worked the first time. Why
Yeah,
doesn't it work the second time?
totally. But you're also chasing like you're chasing like dopamine hits. So like you want the dopamine hit of the workout. Then you're like starving and very sad all day. You're so sad and you're tired and you don't feel good
You're
and
hungry.
you're so hungry.
Oh.
And so like maybe you can coast that for a few days and your body is fine and you can kind of get to like something that feels neutral. But inevitably something crashes, blood sugar, dopamine, serotonin, whatever it is. And you've told yourself that in the state of deprivation, well, I've fucking earned something, right?
Right.
So I was a shopping addict. I bought clothes nonstop to try to feel good. And I would like throw it all away on like, fuck it, you know, I'm hungry. Let's
It's so
go to
interesting how it
yeah,
spills over into other things.
yeah,
And when you were even on that meal plan leading into your wedding, I mean, I can just sense it. It's like no going out to eat, no hanging out with friends, no staying up late, no concerts, no movies, no
no,
nothing. Like
no,
that is your entire focus. It's like
No
blinders are
joy.
on. Right? And then it's like, well, what if I did wanna go have, like, a croissant with a friend? Or what happens if I go on vacation, right? You were doing this plan that was, like, so strict and so rigid that ultimately got you to feeling how you wanted to feel on your wedding day. But then after that, what happens, right? Like, okay, do I reverse diet back? Do I have the bandwidth to even do that? Do I even know what that is? Like,
I did not know what that was.
no.
Yeah.
So then I'm curious, was there kind of a site it sounds like, you lost the weight, gained it back, and then there was like some of this yo-yo stuff. And I think that's also where we get stuck. What was that like for you?
Very mentally distressing and very complicated and feeling like you just have no idea how to do anything correctly. And so
Yeah.
I think that most women I know, and myself included, I ended up in what looked like an equilibrium, which is with that you're not tracking anything. So you're kind of just in your head obsessing about things all day, but you're constantly doing a math equation of like this in, this out, this in, this out. And so if you get to a place where like the way your clothes fit stays consistent, but at the same time, you're mad at yourself because you can't seem to make it different. and you want it to be different. And
Mhm.
it's almost at the denial of what your body actually is, right? You're like, not, you're, it's like a very weird thing. And I've been trying to think about it since I was prepping for this call, where like you don't want to feel your body and you don't want to know your body and you're kind of in denial of her, right? You don't want to listen to the cues she tells you. That's too much working out. That's not enough sleep. I'm very hungry. Um, but at the same time, you're so hyper focused on it. And like, there's a complete disconnect.
Yes,
You,
like, you're thinking about food all the time, so it makes you kind of more hungry and, like, curious about food, but then, like, equally, you're like, "No, I'm not doing the food thing. I'm not eating. No sugar, no sugar." God, it's so loud.
I heard
yeah,
this analogy, it's like and it was mostly applied for, like, cleaning tasks around the house, but it feels very relevant here. When you're already overwhelmed with, like, your regular life, whether that's your professional life, your family, whatever, it feels like you have multiple tabs open in your brain that you're trying not to think about, but you know that you have 50 tabs open. Some of them are, how many calories am I eating? I don't actually know because I'm not writing it down. How many gym workouts have I done? Did I do everything perfectly? And so you have all these tabs just like continuously opening, adding to your overwhelm and frustration. And eventually you're going to burn yourself out.
And I
totally.
think with that too, every time we open a tab, we're trying to get a hit of dopamine,
Mm,
right? And then
Trying
sometimes
to
if we
find
don't
that solution.
Yeah, trying to find that solution, trying to get, like, that sign of, like, "Yes, I am on the right track. This one thing that I open up and try to do is gonna be the next thing." But then we, like, end up with all these open loops of, like, "I'm doing this class pass, I'm doing this Pilates class, now I'm doing this semi kind of this program, but not really sure how heavy I should go," and then it just becomes really busy.
So
yeah.
you're burnt out. And then what's the tipping point? You hire a new coach.
I'll start with COVID actually, which
Okay.
was a really interesting thing. So I had worked a job. Every job I've ever had has been like 80-hour weeks where you're on your feet basically the whole day and you're chasing, like everything is so frantic all the time and everything's an emergency. So COVID happens and like I'm just at home all of a sudden and I have all day
With your thoughts.
to do whatever I want, like to actually make myself a meal. Like, like I used to get home from work and it'd be like 8:30 p.m. and I hadn't eaten all day and I'd gone to the gym and I'd been on my feet all day and I would like cut myself trying to like put something together because I was like so blood sugar dysregulated. And so suddenly I'm like, oh, I can like make myself whatever I want and like kind of just relax. Now, it did not start chill. I mean, I was doing like 3 group fitness video Zoom things a day just to like figure out what to do with all the energy inside my body. I didn't know how to relax. Um, but that actually was like what got us out of New York and got me out of that lifestyle. I really did not think that I would ever live anywhere but New York City. And I did not think that I would do anything but work in fashion or fashion adjacent. And I would ever be surrounded by a community that wasn't reinforcing that life. And so Michael and I, my husband and I, moved out to Connecticut. And suddenly, like, I was able to breathe for the first time. I was able to sleep for the first time.
Wow.
And
Whoa. Sleeping
yeah,
and eating? Crazy. A real
Bad girl.
human.
it was crazy. You guys, you should try it. So Michael was doing CrossFit virtually and he had a barbell and started teaching me lifting and I was able to sort of like quiet the insanity. I stopped doing things like by the time I got there, I was like doing this workout called Dance Body, which is like absolute chaos. In case you're wondering, it's like so high intensity chaos. And I loved it because it was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I started doing something called Army, which is a very interesting group fitness out of California, I think. And it's taught by this super buff guy and it's slow movement, lifting weights, actually doing the same thing over time. So, like, I didn't realize this was the foundation of sort of coming to understand progressive overload, but like that is the ambition that he's trying to teach you. And it's about doing like true movements, not just radical compound movements that look complicated. It's like do a lunge, right?
Yeah.
And so I started doing CrossFit with Mike through like the video. I started doing that. I started getting comfortable with weights and just felt good for the first time, but didn't have the structure and didn't know how to fit it into my day correctly. And then by the time we moved to Seattle and I got a job, I was not doing a good job of like prioritizing it. And I think it's because I didn't have the environment to succeed. Like I had at this point I was working out in my garage in my house. So it's like cold, musty, dusty. I can't do like overhead presses because I hit my fingers on the like garage door. Um, and so he was like, okay, let's do CrossFit. I joined this gym. Why don't you come join with me? And I was like, okay. And I'd never thought about doing it before in my life. And so I joined, and he was right. It was so fun. And I started learning, what does it feel like to actually like put pressure on muscles that I knew how to like hurt through frantic group fitness modalities, but now like what does it feel like to actually like engage them and make them work?
Mhm.
Um and so I'm lucky in that he had a few years ahead of me in strength training to realize that we were not going to get what we wanted out of CrossFit. He was like, every day we do a different thing. I do a squat today. I come back 3 weeks later. I do a squat. How do I know how to get better at a squat if I'm not actually practicing it regularly? Um, and so that's how we get to persist. It's like a workout that you can subscribe to, I guess I would call it. And then you can like engage with the platform and see how people do and whatever. And so we started doing that. And that was like crazy because you go to the gym for like 2 hours and you just are moving so slowly and
2
you're barely,
hours?
yeah, if you do it correctly, it's like 2 hours, no sweating, true strength training, long rest, lift heavy, get better. Like, how do you lift, And I was like, wow, I didn't feel like I was doing anything because it was so different.
You
Mm.
needed to know the why behind, like, what the change was gonna give you to buy
Yeah,
in.
yeah. And so if like it doesn't hurt and I'm not sweating and it's not, I can't breathe, but now I'm like in this movement where like I get to sit for 3 minutes. I like lifted a weight and now I
Suspicious.
get to sit for 3 minutes. I did it 3 times and now I sit for 3 minutes. Like that's not working out. So I had to like lean into a completely different way of thinking about movement, but I also didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't I realized that like there were so many foundational things that were missing for me. You can't go from bar where no one's teaching you anything to Olympic weightlifting. There's so much in between. And so that's
Yes.
how we get to Brie was we were like, okay, we need someone to help us.
So, like, hearing your guys' story around, like, you had such a robust background in fitness, and I think the people who listen to this podcast especially, and us included, we've done a lot of things, but then there's
Mhm.
a moment where you're like, "I just don't know what the next thing could possibly fucking be for me to finally get to what I want."
Yeah.
So then, you get on this call and you get to, you and Mike start talking to me. And I'm kind of curious, like in the beginning of our work together, you had an idea of like what you were looking for and what you thought coaching might be.
Mhm.
And then what happened? Like, I want to hear kind of how that inception went for you.
I guess it was at like the most amazing moment of surrender where I realized like I had no idea what I was doing and I was just going to listen and I was just going to trust the process. And that I think is the hardest thing for people to do really. That I've come to realize that it's like it's incrementalism. It's not 30 days 30 pounds. It's not right change your life immediately and you have a new body tomorrow. And it was actually like the most interesting thing that made me lean into Breathe the most was seeing how the mobility part, this is going to sound so weird, but I am like an overthinker and I really do at this point want to understand how my body works. And so it was seeing how the way that you were coursing out movement for me, it was like you could truly see where my limitations were. That like I knew that things like I knew I had strong glutes, that my glutes could handle a lot. But what I didn't have was like a strong lower core or like a true like healthy relationship with my pelvic floor. Or I lacked flexibility through my upper spine because I had spent a long time, I mean, like most of my life, I was a girl with big boobs in high school. I spent most of my life hunched forward like this because I was trying to make my chest smaller. And so, like, the way that mobility and then how the movement was being built upon, I felt a change inside my body. I felt parts of me being connected mentally and physically to myself in a whole new level.
That's
And
such an interesting, like, point that you point out is, like, there is a level of objective feedback and education that's required from a coach to see, like, if Bree and I see someone back squat, for example, we can tell a lot about what that person needs just by that one movement. So it
Mhm.
sounds like what you're saying is like you needed that objective feedback to see of someone who's a professional to say like, okay, this is all great work that you're putting in. Here's some of the exercises or mobility or core work that I think that we need, and that's how we build a plan that feels like it's for you. Whereas like some of those template things are great, especially as you're beginning to get involved in physical activity in some way, but you need that like next level up in order to finally feel
Yeah.
like you're on the right path.
To be, like, fully assessed, right? Like, look at every single joint of my body and see how it's moving, and
Yeah.
also, Kelsey, like you said, if I just had Caitlin do a back squat, I would've been like, "Alright, yeah, ankles are a little tight, hip flexors could use a little bit of strengthening," but I think, Caitlin, that was, like, one of the biggest light bulb moments for you is that we spent so much of your life, like, silencing these body cues, and in the workouts, like, I just need to survive this 75-minute
Yeah.
bar plus class. But then you're like, no, I'm now going to the gym for 2 hours. And I'm like, how can I make this more, 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 more? But then you realize like the work was actually what we'd silenced the whole time, which is like mind muscle connection, actually putting effort into, if it's only 3 reps, like making those the hardest reps possible. So we talked a lot about the workout part of like how we transitioned. I want to get into like the identity and like the body composition changes and kind of how that came up for us. Oh,
Yeah. No, I was, like I said, ready to lean in. I was going to do whatever Brie told me. I was so excited to have guidance for the first time. It really felt empowering eventually. At the beginning, it was stressful because what's the first thing we talked about was, what are your macros, how to actually track things, how to actually pay attention to what you're doing. I mean, there were a lot of things that I suddenly was quantifying that I'd never done before, or even just like getting over the hump of like filming yourself move. Like there were a lot of things that I was recording and keeping track of that I had just never done before. And so, yeah, I think the
or even
first
seen yourself move that way before because you never
totally,
recorded it.
totally. And now I'm like, if you're at the gym and you're not recording yourself and looking at how you moved in your set, then you actually aren't doing it right. Like, I don't send you half the videos I make because it's just me being like, "Oh, interesting. I felt differently doing it." But looking at it, I see where I cheated myself, or I see where I could have pushed a little harder or whatever.
That's such an interesting like shift where you're in the beginning you're saying I had someone who I thought was guiding me, and then you end that relationship with that person, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But now it's almost like even if you wanted to, you could move on from Brie because you have a little more idea of what you should be doing, what your
Yes.
exercise should be like. But it's not that you want to leave because you like having a coaching sounding board and there is value in that, but the option is there to be semi-autonomous.
I do think you can graduate out of coaching if you chose to, for sure. But I also Bree just sent me form review the other day and I just wrote back, I fucking love form review. Like it's my favorite moment because she is the expert. At this point, I know enough to not hurt myself. I know enough to also like evangelize to the other women at the gym. Like when they ask me a question, like just happened last week, and um, enough to try to convince everyone around me to join me. But I also appreciate an objective expert saying to me, "Hey, I saw this and like maybe tweak this ever so slightly," or like, "Are you really truly feeling it here?" Or like, "Maybe you don't, maybe you're overextending in this movement and instead you need to be focused on the whatever," all the different ways that Brie makes me better. But the food part, because I feel like that's where we started, the food part is the part that was like the headiest to get around because, like I said, I think that a lot of women, if you grow up in especially like whatever socialized in certain parts of this country where like where I'm from, New York, where everyone's like obsessed with being thin, like you think you have an understanding of what you're eating because you're obsessed about it all the time. But you actually have no idea what you're eating if you don't write it down. And I had to come around from, early eating disorder me was writing down what she ate for the wrong purposes. It was like because I needed to eat less than this every single day. And if I eat more than this, and then I have to work out enough where I get to net zero, like that's not actually how calories work, but in my head that was. Now it was like, oh, I see. We're taught completely the wrong things. about nutrition.
Now I'm logging my food so I can maximize how much I can eat
Yes.
given my budget I have.
Yes. And that there is that, like, something like telling yourself that you can't eat carbs all day is like the craziest thing, or that all fat, like if it's healthy fat, as much fat as you want, right? So like I remember the first salad I made now that I was tracking macros, and I was like, that's all the olive oil I can put on my salad? Um and in my own damn mind. But I think, right, and Brie telling me, 50 grams of protein at breakfast. I would not eat breakfast because that was the easiest meal to skip.
Yeah.
Right? So that I get more calories at dinner. Fast forward to a very hungry person at the end of the day eating 7 servings, right?
That's that
Whereas
gremlin that comes out.
yes. And so now what's so funny is that, like, I front load my day so heavily that, like, I'm like 90 grams of protein in before I even get to work. I mean, I'm like, no, I just all my food happens in the morning, and then I have like normal sized meals the rest of the day. Um
So
and
in that time, was there a shift? Like, did you just throw away the scale altogether and only focused on how your body looked? Or was there a moment where you kind of like you had that past eating disorder freak out where you're like, oh no, I'm eating more than I used to. The scale might be moving in the way that I don't like. Was there any kind of like psychological warfare going on?
yes. Well, it was like layered too, because I also don't I have a history of not weighing myself ever since I sort of recovered from a more disordered relationship with my body. I stopped weighing myself, and I more judge how I look based on how my clothes fit. Um, but in the beginning it was very complicated because you're doing recomposition, which is, we were focused on recomp, which is such a nuanced thing to explain to people who are obsessed with dieting, because my number was probably not going to move that dramatically, right? But the whole point was that the physical makeup of my body was going to change. And so we were getting DEXA scans in the beginning, and we were like, I saw, some magical radical beginning shift, like 4 pounds of muscle gained, 4 pounds of fat loss or something first scan. And I was like, what the? And then, like, as you get more along the journey, you're kind of falling within the statistical error zone of the DEXA scan, right? Your change becomes smaller and smaller. And so you might have multiple scans in a row that don't change at all. And so that's where, like, other tools that Brie taught me became helpful. Like I film myself in a bathing suit for Brie every Wednesday morning and send it to her.
Body comp videos are my absolute favorite because when we take just like a still frame shot, I'm like, I don't know, was I inhaling? Was I exhaling? Was I flexing? So Caitlin like will stand in the bathing suit. Like I told her, I'm like, choose your favorite bathing suit because that's what we care about, right? And then every week it's like I can see this is like the coach eye that I don't even think I've told you this, but it's interesting. Every week I can see you get more comfortable in just like the filming of it and also just existing in your body in a bathing suit.
Totally, totally. And so that's so, like, when you are doing a diet and you want to see 30 pounds lost, whatever, the everything goes out the window together. So your muscle and your fat, the water. The thing that scares me the most is that, like, usually, like, the muscle, right? Your body's hungry. You're in a deficit. So you risk losing your muscle if in your efforts to be skinny.
Yes.
And it was like, I want to get off a chair until I die. I
Yes.
want to be able to walk independently until I die. And so this is my politics now. Like
Yes, I wanna talk I wanna know I wanna hear, like, how you were able to go from the version of you that, like, was eating the meal prepped meals and, like, wasn't able to go out or do anything or have a croissant or, like, have any fun, to the season of you where you were being more aware of, like, planned indulgences and just kind of how that relationship to food changed.
yeah, I obviously you taught me so much, but one of the things we talked about a lot was I work a job where it's very social. I go out to lunch almost every single day. And I also travel with my husband a lot. That's one of our favorite things to do. And so I needed to know, like, how to prepare for those moments. And so you had the most, I mean, it's so funny because now saying it, I'm like, duh. But at the time, I had like no tools whatsoever. I needed you. And you were like, well, what do they serve? Look at the menu. What can you put in your day that you can eat that keeps you, within your macros? And I was like, Wow. And I think that one of the things that I had to be comfortable with, what I wasn't before, was like being that girly that is like, I don't want dressing on my salad. And being proud of that and not thinking that that had some sort of thing attached to it. And so, or like, I want, can you grill this instead of fry this or whatever, right? Like asking for things. I just was trained never to ask for things, and to always be taking care of other people. So, taking care of myself and centering myself was like a very huge lesson. And so now, I do this wild thing where if I have something coming up, I like pre-plan for it. So
Crazy.
it's so
Tell us
wild.
tell us how that looks in reality.
Totally. So, I have pretty much the same thing every day for breakfast. I like to have a big chunk of protein, a big chunk of carbs, and a big chunk of fiber. I try to have half my fiber with breakfast. Um, because I know I'm going out, and if I don't have control in the middle of the day, then I don't always hit my fiber target by the time I get home. So, um, and then I'll think, I'm kind of weird. Like if I have plans, like I have plans on Friday, and my first question is, where are we eating lunch? Or what are we doing? So that I can already go into, I track all my food and I go in there and I say, okay, this is what I'm going to eat. So I'll have this for I'll plan my whole day going forward that way. Sometimes I don't have that control, but at this point, I have a good enough idea of what my macros look like. And I also feel less anxious about deprivation or starvation. Like, I think that the reason that most people do the opposite of this, where they like, I just won't eat all day because I'm going out to dinner, is that they're like afraid of, first of all, overloading the indulgence. They're like, they don't realize that they've set themselves up for failure that way, that you're going to arrive to the table starving. And so you're definitely getting, 3 apps that you didn't even want, and then having whatever totally off book thing for dinner.
I
And
remember when we
also,
first started working
yeah,
together, one of the things that you had asked me, like, and really, really in the beginning, you were like, "Is it okay for me to have bread?"
Everybody asks that. Everyone.
You were
I
like,
love bread.
"Hold
That's my
on,
number
hold
Yeah.
one
on.
food.
What happens if I really like bread?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay. When do you like to have bread? What's your, like, favorite piece of bread situation?"
Yeah, no, it's so funny. Yeah, I think everyone has their own idea of like what their perfect thing is. My perfect thing is just a really good piece of sourdough bread with butter. And you were just like, okay, well, what if you just had that? You just made sure that the rest of the day fit around that. That's like the easiest thing
I was
to
like,
fit.
"I want you to have it, like, every day if you really love it."
Yeah, yeah. She was like, because that is the other thing. You tell yourself you can't have the thing and then become obsessed by the thing. And so then when you go to have the thing, you have 30 of the thing, right? I can't have bread, so I'm gonna have half a loaf of bread now that I'm finally in front of bread. But if you just have like a lovely piece of bread every day, and then, what happens also as your microbiome changes and as your body
It
changes is
does
that like
change, yeah.
how you think about it and how you crave it changes. So there was a time where like a meal for me was like matzo crackers with literally like probably a tablespoon of butter spread on top. It's good. It slaps. But now, like the other day, I was making a recipe for a meal I was going to at a friend's house, and it was like the salad dressing recipe was like a third of a cup of olive oil. And I was like, I don't even know how to deal with that much olive oil. Like, because what you crave and how you relate to food changes so dramatically. Like, I think a lot about, especially in this Ozempic era, friends of mine who are on Ozempic and talk about how the food noise is gone. I can teach you how to lose food noise. Stop having a fucking disordered relationship with food.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're starting to get into, like, the who you are now and, like, the identity shift that we needed both around fitness, right? That if it's hard and it feels like it's killing me, then it's probably good with
Yeah,
training, and then same kind of thing with food, right? If I'm pained by how starving I am and that my friends think I look starved is a good thing, it's like we can see how this is not true health, right? Like rationally. But when we're in it, it feels like that's exactly the right thing.
totally. And
And I
So,
think you've,
yeah,
like, made a lot of what people think is like, "Oh, just fitness people do that," right? Like, just fitness people go to the gym 4 times a week. Just healthy people eat salads and carbs and bread and protein. That can't be me. So it's like almost this like othering where like that's not me. How did you make all of these teachings that Brie has instilled into you become useful for a normal person just like we all are?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I say this to Bree, like, I think that there are some people who are very outcome oriented and there are people who are process or practice oriented. And I'm definitely a practice oriented person. I'm not chasing, I don't have this thing. My goal is to continue to progress. My goal is not to arrive at a moment where it's like, ta da, I'm done. And so the more that you are willing to actually lean into what feels uncomfortable, because every day at the gym, it becomes like a practice place to then extrapolate out, right? At the gym, you are testing things like failure. You're testing things like being uncomfortable. You're testing things where you aren't sure you can do it. And holy shit, you could. I didn't know I could lift something this heavy. And look, I did. And how that extrapolates out to how you relate to other people, how you relate to goals in your life, how you relate to challenges that come up. If your body is practiced to being just uncomfortable and realizing you can survive, suddenly you can survive all of it. And so the food piece becomes sort of an extension of that, right? If we are like afraid of food and we're afraid to eat because we think it's going to make us fat, and every day we practice fueling our body and feeling healthy. It doesn't happen immediately. And there are plenty of times where I freaked out, family visiting, holidays, like travel. What do I do when I travel? And the more you lean into, I have the tools and I know what it takes to feel good. And I don't actually want to risk not feeling good. And I also know that I can survive an uncomfortable moment and the world won't fall apart. Then I have everything I need to be okay. Right.
Yeah. You had the
Mic drop.
confidence. Yeah, like, you gained confidence in what you were able to do, and you were in a now dopamine producing cycle instead of a dopamine depleted cycle, and I think that is also what gives this identity shift legs, is that when you do the hard thing, the hard workout, and then you have a whole day of work, and you're like, "Wow, like, I cannot believe who I was this morning. Like, look at me, like, I crushed it. I text my coach, I hit a training PR that I wasn't even anticipating, and now my entire day is starting differently than waking up, grabbing coffee, rushing out of the house, being scared that I'm gonna be fat. The first people that I see, they're gonna comment on my body. Like, I feel like this clarity around having the sounding board to let the overthinking be present. Like, overthink carbs to death and soundboard it with me. And then
Mhm.
when we had soundboarded it to death, you were like, "Oh, I'm just gonna have, like, a normal portion of carbs." I was like, "Cool. Great work. Let's do that for a couple weeks." Um,
Yeah, totally.
so so if we could kinda go back and talk to the version of you the day before I met you, feeling stuck, like, still a little stuck, like, a little like, "Okay, I don't
Mhm.
quite buy into this slow lifting, but I'm scrolling for answers at 11 p.m." What
Yeah.
would you say to her?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that at the time I was able to just sort of get out of my own way and lean in. And I think the more that you can, I mean, I would give her permission to like focus on herself in a way that was productive, right? I was like obsessed, but also afraid of myself and hated myself and that kind of level of obsession. And that like every tool that I've learned with working with Bree has also been about like, how do you center yourself in a day and prioritize yourself and make sure that you're doing the thing that is like true with your values, makes you feel good. Like my gym time is unapologetically my gym time. You cannot interrupt it. It is for me. And I'm there to be myself and in my body and feel good. And I'm going to do that 4 days a week. And you cannot stop me. And then that extrapolates out. I go and I eat and I'm going to make the decision that supports my value system because I know who I want to be and I know what I'm working towards and I feel like I feel empowered to do that. But this is also why, yes, you can graduate past Brie, but why would you want to?
And that's exactly why I wanted to have you on this podcast today, because your story is a mirror to for so many women, right? We're stuck, we're frustrated. Even if we look fit to other people, that internal battle is nonstop and it's loud and it distances you from other people when really all you want to do is be seen and understood and respected. And then it gets to this place where you have to be so raw and vulnerable and honest with yourself and then sometimes another person to realize like, oh, some of these limiting beliefs that just go on repeat, I actually don't even have to subscribe to anymore. I actually can unsubscribe to those.
Yeah.
And so
There's a lot more work to do. I mean, my family, we talk about it a lot, my family still has all sorts of wacky things that I end up in conflict with. And every day that I, let's say I'm visiting them, I'm like, great, I'm so happy I'm here, but I'm also going to still go to the gym for 2 hours. So I'll see you after my morning workout. Or let's talk about a time that works, that allows me to spend time with your son and still lets me have what I want. And that's still like such a weird thing for her to resolve.
Yeah.
Um,
Setting boundaries with other people are for you, not because of them. And
yeah,
say, even with your sister, the last time that you were here, it's like you setting a boundary and saying, I'm going to go take this time to work out, also does silently invite her to level up as well. Because now she's going to be, what am I going to do with these 2 hours? Am I going to
yeah,
spin around like a top and have some cigarettes and Diet Coke, or am I going to go for a walk? Maybe. I don't know. But it's just
yeah,
the invitation through the boundary. And
yeah,
I think that's really powerful because you are now creating a space for women to listen to this and hear that there is another side to the frustration, and really, like, this, we become our own worst enemy in those ways. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being such a great client and also for coming on this podcast. It's Caitlin's first podcast ever, her podcast debut.
totally. No, thanks so much. I was telling you the other day at the gym, this woman walked up to me and she asked me how much I was pressing on the leg press. And I was like, well, give me a second. And I pulled up my thing because I track every single thing I do. And I was like, I was doing this much. And she was like, how did you do that? And I was like, you got to start somewhere, girly. I was like, bring the weight over, see if you can do it. If you can't do it, drop it a little, put it on the ground. What's the worst that happens? But like, it's you have to believe you can, and then you can. And I just want everyone to come along with me. Let's all just be so strong and live forever. I'm not
Yes.
fainting on a chair.
No fainting in a chair. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for bringing the openness, the honesty, and the rawness. And really, again, just for letting other people see what's possible on the other side. And so, anyone listening, if any part of this conversation resonated with you or made you kind of think twice about the inputs that you're putting in, or really just how many inputs you're putting in, Kelsey and I are both taking clients. I am taking clients for my one-on-one transformation package, which is a 3-month transformation package that I'm offering, as well as my new app will be launching in the next month. A little delay here with the app launch. Just thanks, Apple. But it will be happening. And so if you do want to be part of this fierce female community that we're creating, we will put the link in the show notes.
If you're looking to get into lifting, my Beginning with the Barbell is a free guide on my link in my bio. So feel free to check that out. Of course, I'm always taking in-person clients in San Diego and virtually. We're here for you. So stay tuned for the next episode. And as always, share this with a friend who might be trapped in the diet culture chaos. And connect with us on Instagram at overt_thinking podcast, at Brianna Lamb, at Kelsey Michelle.
P.S. If you have not checked us out on YouTube, YouTube sees it first. And if you're someone who likes to watch us yap, hop on over there and subscribe.